Let's discuss the biggest dual meet upsets of the entire season. This was an exciting season to say the least. There were so many great matches that happened this season in duels dating back to November. Since the first week of the season when we saw so many crazy upsets. I mean, it was like they all happened at once. But then more and more happened throughout the season, and I think that's what was so exciting to watch. So please, before I get any further, comment what was your favorite upset duel this season of 2020. First, let's discuss some honorable mentions. So some honorable mentions. South Dakota State over Stanford, I think, is one that deserves to be mentioned. Although Stanford was resting a couple of new guys, still an impressive win for South Dakota State and shows that the program, the Jackrabbits, are in the hunt to always be a ranked team. Next up is Nebraska over Ohio State. Didn't quite crack my top list, but was an impressive win nonetheless. Moving on to an unranked Rider beating number 6 at the time, Minnesota. Now, Minnesota right now is down at like number 13, but still, the fact that Rider beat them is a great win for them by 21-17 score back in November. One of the biggest matches was Sherry over Skatska, a big upset there, and Ryan Cloud putting it away at heavyweight. Moving on to another honorable mention is Michigan State beating Wisconsin. Now, what was interesting here is this was just a straight up win for Michigan State for the most part. I mean, Wisconsin had one guy out, but everybody else, it was just like a good matchup for these two teams. An unranked Michigan State over number 9 Wisconsin, and that was exciting to see. A big match there was Caffey over Sebastian. A couple other honorable mentions here. Illinois over Northwestern. Great matchup there. As well as Rutgers over Northwestern. That was another big win for that team. Now, let's discuss the top dual meets of the season. And look, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Arizona State beating Penn State. And yes, I am a Penn State fan, but the fact that Arizona State defeated Penn State for the first time in 5 years, out of any team to beat Penn State in the first time in 5 years, beating a 60 dual meet streak. The students stormed the mat at the end, and it was just a crazy start to the season. Guys, it didn't really start out all that crazy either, the dual meet. Guys who needed to win, they won. Chenzo beat Shields. Hall beat Valencia. But really what it came down to is there was no Berge, no Shakur, which, I don't know how much he would have helped, seeing how he's wrestling this season. Kyle Connell, who was still in the lineup at that point before his injury, was majored. And then Kassar, he had to try to get the pin at the end. He almost got it. Would have been absolutely wild if he did. Wasn't able to get it. Still got a nice victory there at heavyweight. But the fact that Arizona State beat Penn State, that was a big dual meet victory for them, and probably it's going to be a lot of your favorites. I know I asked you, wrestling fans, what your favorite upset was, and a lot of you did say Penn State losing to Arizona State. Next up is UNC defeating Virginia Tech. Now, Virginia Tech at the time was undefeated in the season. This happened back on January 24th, and UNC just came out hot. They beat Virginia Tech, who was undefeated, 23-10. What a win. What a win. Now, Melendez over Prada, that was a big win coming into that match. Sherman over Moore at 141. Headley over LaPrade. All of these matches just kind of led to UNC beating number 3 Virginia Tech by a very strong number. And this was even with Kennedy Monday, Tech falling David McFadden. That was absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. Now, what else is going on here? Well, we also had the next matchup in Wisconsin over Nebraska. Wisconsin over Nebraska was the next match I'd like to discuss as one of the best upsets of this season. This happened back in January. Now, Wisconsin at this point had lost to Iowa, had lost to Minnesota, and this was, I believe, their first Big Ten win of the season. Nebraska is a team that personally I said was a little bit overrated at the beginning of the year. I didn't think they should be this high in the rankings, and they're not now, but they made their way back up. They finished the season at number 4, which is where I believe they deserve to be. Whereas Wisconsin is down, believe around like that 14 part right now, 14 rank, which kind of proves that this upset is even more impressive. Now, they won the ranked matchups. Wisconsin won the ranked matchups with Gross beating Lovett by major decision, Moran beating Red, as well as Wick over White and Hilger over Lance. All of these led to a 25-18 victory for Wisconsin. What a great duel that was. And it's great to look back on a lot of these duels. At the next spot, I have Virginia Tech over Ohio State. And I have 3 more duels, actually, that were just crazy upsets and I believe deserve to be noted. But next up was Virginia Tech over Ohio State. This was another match that, even with McFadden losing, Virginia Tech pulled off this upset. Number 11 over number 3 was a 21-15 victory for the Hokies back in November. This was one of those crazy months I was talking about back in November. Now, the biggest swing for the team was, of course, Moore pinning Sammy Sasso, and that's really what led to, you see that 6-point swing. That doesn't happen. Maybe Sasso picks up that victory, which he did end up avenging that loss over Brent Moore at Cliff Keen, but he lost in the duel, and that lost him the match, but that's kind of what happened there, and what a duel that was. Next up on the agenda is Lehigh over Oklahoma State. Lehigh is finishing as a top 10 team, and Oklahoma State is finishing right outside the top 10 at number 11. And really, this match comes down to the reason why, because Lehigh beat Oklahoma State by a score of 21-20. And the biggest reason that they lost, I don't say the biggest reason because I don't like putting blame on one guy, but one of their wrestlers, Whitcraft, missed weight. He had to forfeit. But the question I think that a lot of people had is, why didn't Oklahoma State have a backup? Why was there no backup for Oklahoma State for Whitcraft? I think that was a little bit strange. Now, there were no crazy upsets other than that. The best match was Pitch over Pagesoul, 11-3 score, a major decision. Gear and Llewellyn both won. So all of that. Now, Cutler won for Lehigh, and Humphrey defeated Sheets, who Sheets we've been seeing making a big rise in the rankings. But listen, that was a great match to watch if you're a Lehigh or maybe not an Oklahoma State fan, maybe not as exciting for you, but a great match if you're a Lehigh fan. And one other match that I think was one of the most impressive on the year was Campbell defeating Iowa State. Now, Campbell defeating Iowa State happened back in January by a score of 22-14. This happened at the duel on the Diamond, whenever it was Iowa State, Campbell. I believe Harvard and Arizona State happened out in Arizona. What a match. Now, Noah Gonzer defeated Todd Small, a great win for him. Jason Kreiser pulled his red shirt at 149 pounds. And ended up getting a nice, solid pin for the Camels, and that helped propel them forward, as well as Morgan over Marcus Coleman and Hino over Gremmel. All of those put Campbell over Iowa State, beating them by that score, and it was a great win for the program, and one that really pushed them into now that top 20 team as far as rankings are concerned. And one of the last best upsets, before I get into what some of your favorite upsets were, was number 17 UNI over number 12 Wisconsin. And this was a duel to really end out the season on a 20-18 score, UNI defeating Wisconsin. Blockus over Moran was probably the best match in that duel, but you also had Steyer, Lujan, and Patton with 3 straight wins for UNI. A great duel to end out the season on overall. And as far as what did you say? I asked you in the community tab on YouTube. I said, what were some of your favorite upsets? And the majority of you did say Arizona State over Penn State, but we had a couple other ones with UNC over Virginia Tech. That's what Cringe Detector said. That was a very big upset. Princeton over Cornell. Yeah, that was a big win. And I don't necessarily remember if that was a crazy upset as far as rankings and numbers. But yeah, that was a big win because it was the first time that Princeton beat Cornell in a very long time, defeating their EIWA streak and end up helping them win the EIWA conference championship. John Cooper, Thomas Miller, both of you said that. And then John DeCicere, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing that, both said Wisconsin, or you said Wisconsin over Nebraska. Yeah, what a great duel. UNI over Okie State. That's what Dylan Sparks had to say. And like I said, most of you said Arizona State over Penn State, but it was a lot of fun discussing this with you guys, and I can't wait to see what comes now in the postseason.